Okay. Hello, everybody. We are going to go ahead and get started on this exciting evening. So welcome to this week's listening session of Female Farmers. As you know, food security, healthy soils, and family businesses are the cornerstones of my platform for governor of homegrown prosperity for thriving communities. Working with my lieutenant governor, Ben Vig, a fifth generation farmer, keeps the health and future of family farming and agriculture front and center in our campaign. He wants to make sure that his little girl, Mara, has a choice to be a sixth generation farmer in North Dakota. Agriculture is North Dakota's most essential and sustainable industry. The nation and the world will always need what we produce, but that doesn't mean we don't need to evolve how we do things. Ben and I understand that we need to have a louder voice at the table in Washington, D.C. We need to make sure that trade agreements are not negotiated without folks who will actually be impacted by the table or at the table. Our state has the opportunity to be leaders in our nation with a fifth generation farmer as their lieutenant governor as we evolve ag into the future to ensure that we have a sixth generation and seventh generation farming industry. As most farming businesses recognize, the women of agriculture are critical to the success of the family farm. Here tonight, we have some of the nation's most progressive and successful women in the agriculture to share insight directly from their experience and vision. We will hear from women from all aspects of agriculture, including crop ag, animal ag, grasslands ag, and legal aspects. This is truly a historic discussion for our state and for our future. So without further ado, I'm excited to let the women speak for themselves. We are recording and streaming this session on our Facebook page and look forward to hearing from our speakers. And then we will open the floor to some questions and answers with our wonderful female farmers. So let's get started with our first speaker, Megan Vig.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Megan Vig, and I was born on a dairy and beef farm. I was born into a dairy and beef farming family. I grew up helping my parents by milking operation, by keeping up with the record keeping, and watching for marketing opportunities. When Dr. Shelley visited with me on this female farmer listening session, I was fired up because I was recently fired up at work. I work in higher education, and I got a report based off what Governor Burgum wants to see in higher education. And there were some key words reported back: automation and drones. And it caused me to sit back and think, why? Why does he want to replace North Dakota citizens? No, don't get me wrong. I love technology and improving efficiency, but at some point, I feel like we have to realize what North Dakota looks like, what it used to look like, and where it is today. And I have a story I want to share on that, because in my previous role as an extension agent, I used to have a retired farmer come visit with me in the office, and he'd share his recollections of how North Dakota used to look and how it was homesteaded in North Dakota. And what I really enjoyed about the history that he would share with me is decreased in those in our community. So I'm going to use those ratios, and I'm just going to machinery There was the Great Depression. There were some wars. So we saw a decrease for the good, for the mechanized machinery, but also the bad with the Great Depression and the wars. But we saw a reduction of 40 families to 20. We'll just say 20, bringing us into the 1940s. Then we're going from the 1940s to the 80s. Synthetic fertilizers, chemicals came into the picture, making farmers more efficient, and again, able to farm more ground. But again, reducing those amount of farmers in our landscape. And I'm just gonna go 1 to 2. We'll say those 20 families turned into 10, bringing us into the 1980s. And the 1980s was a struggle, and I'm sure we're gonna hear about that tonight, with banknotes being called, some farmers leaving that rural community to find jobs elsewhere because they just couldn't make it farming anymore. And going from the 1980s to nowadays, those that did survive, they're retiring, and they don't really have anybody taking on. The next generation has found different jobs. And so I'm going to bounce back. And, we're at 10 now. So we went from having 10 in the 1980s, and if I do that 2-to-1 ratio, we're down to 5 in the 1920s. And I want to go back to Governor Burgum's words on automation and drones. I don't want to lose any more people in our township, and I'm just generalizing, but there's not a lot of us left. And I'm kind of sick and tired of seeing our raw commodities leave this state when we could use them, we could process them, and we could see those tax dollars contributing to our state budget rather than some other state capitalizing on it. So with that, I just say thank you, Shelley, for having me, and I will pass it on to the next person.
Okay, thank you for that, Megan. That was an excellent review of what's happened in North Dakota history and our family farms. And our next speaker is Dr. Jessie Evanuk, a veterinarian and a female farmer. You're muted. You're muted.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the invite. So I am a veterinarian here at State Avenue Vet Clinic, was invited by Shelley to join this discussion. A little bit about myself. I actually grew up in South Hart in a small community. I was a 4-H and FFA kid, did all of those activities, had livestock. I married my high school sweetheart. I attended vet school at Iowa State University, practiced elsewhere, and really just wanted to come back to North Dakota. It was always his dream. He always said to raise kids and cows. So when we had our first son, we moved back and now live on his family farm ranch. And so we've been there about 7 years now. We've added a second son, so I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. We love the rural lifestyle. We love where we're at. We love having the village, so to speak, to help us raise our children. And so maintaining that ranch is really one of our top priorities. I, of course, work as a veterinarian where he does, predominantly he's on the farm ranch. His parents are still there. His dad, he will never say he retires because when you retire, you die in his mind. So he's that kind of old school style of just work until you can't. But we would say he's more semi-retired. And we predominantly have cattle and sheep and, of course, other animals and hay ground. So not much in the way of crops. And so I'm excited to kind of visit with some others across the state. For us, the bigger concerns that we share in our area and with a lot of the younger people that we are working alongside in Western North Dakota is land acquisition. So for us to grow, to be able to have ground to rent, and there's a lot of ranchers that are maybe approaching retirement age or wanting to slow down, and then how to make that economically viable, where we're renting ground that's going to be profitable by running cattle or sheep, and kind of competing maybe with absentee landowners as well that are not living in North Dakota but have ground here. We are kind of near the edge of the Badlands. We're in the Fairfield area. So there's some value in hunting and recreation as well, which is interesting, unique. So that's one of our main concerns. And then the second concern is the transition of the farm and ranch, you know, through the generations. We are also dealing with absentee siblings or absentee family members that are still part of a trust. And so it's a unique place to be in. You know, we're really excited about staying where we're at and continuing to grow. We've taken some different approaches, like with our sheep and lamb, we're doing a lot of direct to consumer. So trying to capture a little bit more there. Cattle, just, you know, implicated some different practices, changing some of the ways that were done before. But definitely there's challenges, but we're really excited about where we're at. And of course, our kids love their lifestyle. I mean, you ask what they want to be when they grow up, and they're ranchers. It's not veterinarians. It's not me. They want to be ranchers like their dads. So I'm really excited to be part of this group, and I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Jessie. And next we have Tricia Fearing.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me to participate. We live on the North Dakota-Montana border, north of Beach, and my husband and I ranch here. We raise registered Angus cattle, and along with our 2 daughters. And then, let's see, I worked for the NRCS office in Beach and several other offices for about 22 years, and took a job change here about, well, actually it was the day COVID-19 started in the state. So it'll be a landmark date change for me for probably a long time to come. So I started working for the North Dakota Grazing Lands Coalition from my home. And as far as our own operation, we raise registered Angus cattle. About 5 years ago, we decided that we were tired of selling a commodity and wanted to sell a product. And so we got a retail meat license and have been processing at a federally inspected plant so that we're able to sell both in Montana and North Dakota. And we sell 100% grass-fed beef. We also do pastured broilers, about 450 of them a year. So something that if you would ask me probably even 6 or 7 years ago that I would be raising and butchering chickens, that definitely would not have been on my agenda. But I can associate with what Jessie had to say, in that it's tough for young people to get started in agriculture. We were fortunate enough when we moved here that we were able to buy a quarter of land, and then it was a piece of ground that we had been renting. We were able to add a section to that, and now we also lease some neighboring land. So it's a type of thing, I guess, where it's kind of a stair-stepping type of thing, and I feel that we need more young people in agriculture. As Megan said, the population keeps decreasing, and there's more and more farmers that are retiring. Some of them have an idea how to transition. They say they can't get out, and we say we can't get in. So there's kind of a balance there. I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but over time, the transition, the succession planning that the Extension Office offers has been a wonderful thing, I think, for a lot of people. I will talk a little bit about the Grazing Lands Coalition. It's a grassroots organization that was developed in 1996 by ranchers from across the state of North Dakota. And right now we have, I believe there's 34 mentors that are scattered across our state. These are ranchers that have, I would say, stepped outside of the box and tried new things. They're not conventional. They would tell you in most cases that if they're not trying something new every year, they're not doing anything. They're all about change. They're all about innovation. Then the other thing, our organization offers education events throughout the year, whether it's tours and workshops. My position was formed through a grant that allows me to work with ranchers from across the state, basically doing what I was doing, working for the government, but with a lot less red tape. So it's a lot more enjoyable and it's a lot more relaxed, but I'm able to work with producers on grazing systems, water developments. Pretty much, I consider myself kind of a grassland cheerleader, because a lot of these guys are trying new things and doing things, but they just need somebody to, I guess, make a phone call to and have me come out and say, it looks good. Just keep doing what you're doing. Because people's nature is to not try different things, because a lot of times they are, I don't want to say that, maybe crucified isn't the right word, but you have to have a little bit of a thick spine, in my opinion. And you got to stay out of the coffee shops and you got to stay out of the bars, because that's the people that tend to want to bring you down and don't support you in making those changes. And the one thing that, as a younger person in ag, I would say that my husband and I have, in order to basically kind of get through one year to the next, you know, you only have so much land to work with, and they don't make more of it. And I feel that the best thing that a lot of people can do is try to be innovative and try to stack enterprises on your operation. Whether that be a home-based business on top of your ranching enterprise or farming enterprise, or if it's bagging your own wheat and selling it. I don't care what it is, but use your own skills that you have and try to be innovative and try to stack those enterprises, because that's really our biggest resource that we have available to each one of us that are farming and ranching. So I guess that's all I have. We can wait for questions if anybody has questions, but thank you again for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you, Tricia. And having been a student of hers for a couple classes, she'll knock your socks off with her knowledge. If they want to reach you quickly, Tricia, do they just reach you through the Grasslands Coalition website? Yeah,
you can contact me through that, or my email that I use is Feiring Cattle Co. It's FEIRING cattle and then CO for company @yahoo.com. And I can post it in the chat too.
Thank you for that. And we'll post it in the Facebook too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, all right. So I just want to say hi to everybody watching on Facebook. If you've just come on, we are visiting with some of the most progressive female farmers that happen to be right here in North Dakota. And our next speaker is Christy Yeager.
Hi. We actually pronounce it Jaeger, but that's,
I'm sorry.
That's okay. My name is Christy, as I just said, and we live in north central North Dakota, near the little town of Esmond. More of you may know Rugby. We're south of Rugby. Our kids have gone to school in Rugby. I definitely live in an area that has experienced the rural decline, like Megan talked about. My husband went to school in Esmond, and that closed in 1992, and our kids go about 23 miles one way to school, but that's just part of life. There's probably, 4 farms in our township, that kind of thing.
Wow.
And yet, even with that, just before I forget, because it was brought up already, it is interesting how the land acquisition is still a challenge. There are so many landowners holding onto that land, whether it's for tax reasons that aren't from here, haven't been involved in farming in a long time, and it's difficult. And my husband is almost too nice of a guy that's out there acquiring land, but it's getting very difficult to make a profit on the farm with the same amount of land that you've had for the last 20 years. So our daughter is a graduate student at Arizona State University. She will not be involved in our farm, but loves to call North Dakota her home. Our oldest son just graduated from BSc. I have to say a shout out to Bismarck State College. They've really developed a great farm and ranch management program. He also made a lot of friends. I think he's a very social boy, but he did seem to learn something, and it's just a great opportunity. Our state and our farmers should be proud to have that asset here. Besides the 4-year option at NDSU, of course. But I'm also a UND grad, so just stay away from NDSU. And he is home farming with us, so we face a lot of those worries about we're not exactly near retirement, so how will we be able to, support all of us. And our youngest son is 16. He just started school today, his junior year in Rugby. We have done a little bit of work, like Tricia, your talk was really interesting to me. In fact, my husband was looking into the reference question. We've done a little work with Ducks Unlimited. We're just kind of starting. I think my husband doesn't love change. So for him, you know, he's farmed this way. He's very good at farming this way, but it's time to do something more. So we're making changes in our pastures as well with cross fencing and hoping to create more room for more heads of cattle, that kind of thing. So I guess on the one hand, the downturn in prices and the difficulties, it does make us as farmers think differently, think out of the box. What can we do to be more profitable? I know someone mentioned, or I think it was you, Megan, to have more opportunity for us to convert our raw products. You know, I would love to start getting into possibly feeding our cattle to finish, but there's just so few processors up here in North Central North Dakota that, you know, I can maybe do 2 a year, you know, right now. So I think those types of things would be really interesting, especially on the cattle end for us. If we could do something and not have to ship all our calves out of state every year, that would be really cool. Some of my other concerns, obviously, I don't expect you to fix this, Shelley, but the commodity prices really suck, and it's very difficult to pencil anything out, even a bumper crop. I myself, just with our son home farming, I've moved into a job like a lot of you that have as well to help pay the bills. So I'm working as a crop adjuster now, and the health insurance obviously is a very big obstacle. And just the low prices. So those items I had written down. Some other concerns besides the farming part is just those of us that want to keep living rural. It is everything from hospitals to schools to, I mean, I don't mind that my kids go 23 miles to school if they have a good school. Looking to the future, if my son stays here, you know, I sure hope there's rural busing for his future family. The ambulance service worries me the most. I really trust and feel that our rural hospitals do a very good job. There's amazing people that have stayed to work, but the state really should take over ambulance services. I was an EMT for a while, and you kind of get rust out instead of burnout because there's just so few incidents. And the amount of time you'd have to wait. We all accept we live very far. We will be waiting for an ambulance, but it shouldn't be the way it is right now. So those are some of my concerns. Otherwise, it's great to be here and that somebody wants to take the time to listen to us, and that some of us are still out here trying to make it go, and we love North Dakota. So thank you.
Thank you, Christy. And we all share those values. And that's why I truly believe a veterinarian and a farmer would be better representatives for North Dakota's economies and have a seat at that table. And we do have some plans of that homegrown prosperity, but this isn't about us, this is about you. And so I'll talk till the cows come home, but I'm bummed about that. Okay, thank you, Christy. Next is Jenna Van Horn. Jenna, are you there?
I'm here somewhere.
There you are.
Hi. Okay, so I farm out in Steele with my mom, and we've had a dairy farm here since the 1950s, and I think we're the only one left in Kidder County. It's really depressing for me because I don't know, once you milk cows, it's like your whole life is different, and I wish it was easier to have a small farm and make it. I'm gonna be buying well, we have 2 farms, but I'm gonna buy one off my mom here pretty soon, and more than anything, I'm worried about property taxes, and I can't continue to milk cows with the prices that they are. It's just not profitable at all. And we have a really good herd. We don't have whole problems. We don't have yonis. We don't have anything running through them. You know, it should be easier to do something you love. I know I'm getting into farming because I just like doing my own thing. So I'm coming up with some pretty creative plans. I might have to just switch over fully to goats. We have goats and beef cows too. I don't know. We really have to start thinking out of the box in order to make any type of profit. We're doing more direct to consumer things with herd shares, and meat and stuff. But it's just, I don't know. You should be able to be comfortable and not pinching pennies in order to make it. I mean, when you have the responsibility of feeding the world, you would think we would get paid more than the Amazon guy. It's and then I don't know. I have such big dreams for the future for young farmers, but we have to make some serious incentives and some serious changes if we're going to talk. If I'm going to talk my daughter into farming, I mean, I'd love her to experience this. I want that sixth generation and love the land like I do, and like my mom does, like my grandparents did. It just shouldn't be so brutal and depressing. I guess it could be easier to farm, and I really, man, I am praying you win, because you know what? You're gonna change North Dakota for us. You will. You'll bring it back around. I know you will. But that's it.
Thank you, Jenna. And I'm going to correct you. We will. And what I always say is, for every woman in power, there's a group of women that put her there. And that's how, actually, I'm going to bring up our next speaker. And I have to say, my kind of matriarch crush, I don't know, is Miss Sarah Vogel. Sarah, I know that you're not going to be speaking, but you are listening, and you have shaped the history of agriculture in North Dakota. Any reaction to what you're hearing or perspective?
All you farmers just so impress me with what you're doing and the work you're doing, and how much you care about the land and the next generation and feeding other people. And you're absolutely right, Jenna. It should not be this hard. And I would like to say that the problems we have in farming and ranching are all public policy driven. It's laws, it's regulations, it's tax breaks to pesticide companies, not farmers. It's corporate giveaways. It's governments that forget who they're working for, and it's just dam over time for a revolution. And you guys need to lead it. And it's happened before. Shelley and I spent a long time talking about the Nonpartisan League.
Yep.
And the Nonpartisan League had a lot of women were involved in the Nonpartisan League, and they were extremely active. And then in the 80s, I was elected agriculture commissioner, the first in the nation to be elected an ag commissioner. And I wasn't a farmer. I would not dignify myself by calling myself a farmer. I now own a farm. There's a difference between owning a farm and being a farmer. But it's just too tough. But sometimes in the worst of times, like the 30s is when the CCC was created, when many of the programs, the tree planting, the NRCS, all those programs are created in the worst of times. Mm-hmm. In the 80s, we started Marketplace of Ideas. Unfortunately, that's ended, but that's where people like you got together and shared ideas and gave, the people assembled and reached that magic energy level where things can start happening. We started up APUC, which Egg Products Utilization Commission, and just got all kinds of new things happening, co-ops, and you know, a lot was happening, but times get good, and then people stop paying attention so much to the public policy, and then things sort of slip. But I think all of the fault lines in our current system of agriculture are now showing up. And this means it's an opportunity. And I really hope Shelley gets elected, because there's just no attention being paid to farmers and farming and small towns. And, you know, in this day and age, the small towns should be thriving, not dying. So more power to you. And I'm just amazed at your strength and your courage. And I really, really hope everybody shares that strength, because it's going to be like a big damn bonfire when you all get together.
Thank you, Sarah, for that. And yeah, I think that's what's it's so easy to fight for the North Dakotan people, because they're so hardy and strong and independent, god dang independent. And so thank you for those words of wisdom. And just to remind the world out there that's watching, we need to support our small towns, because food and energy will always come from the rural environment. And those two are supported by thriving small or thriving communities. So anyway, and that's why I'm running. So now, thank you, Sarah. So those are our list of speakers. Is there anybody else that would like to share a reaction or thoughts before we get started on the question? I had a little note from Catherine Volchenko that she'd like to say a little something. Catherine?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Shelley, and good evening, everybody. I'm Catherine Volchenko here in Mercer, as you can see by my sign back here. I just want to talk about what I've been through with the farming and ranching. I'm originally from California, raised in the Napa Valley area on a larger cattle ranch, and moved out to North Dakota in 1979. I was in the Air Force. That's what brought me out here. Anyway, I got into farming and ranching it was 1990, and up in the Butte Hills, and we had cattle and some small grains, and but I guess just to I don't want to take up too much time, just that it's tough. I know what it's like to scratch, so I feel for you, Jenna. I've been there, done it, and I've operated on my own. And so prices were like in the 80s for five weight calves. And luckily I had good grassland that my husband and I had up in the Butte Hills. The carrying capacity per AUM was about 5 acres per AUM, so that's rather high. Native prairie. So, you know, we were lucky that way. But I was not afraid to get out and, of course, do the work and do the fixing, learn how to do the repairs, save many, many thousands of dollars that way. And so, like I said, I've been there. I have worked for a farmer, and so I've been there as a farmhand. And how shall I say? I guess my main hurdle was until the community got to know me and got to understand my abilities. Sexual discrimination a little bit, ran into that once in a while. You don't know, in other words, a lot, you get underestimated per se. And I think a lot of you, I see some heads nodding, so you've been there, you've seen that. But once they realize that you do have the ability, I know I did earn the respect of my community in the Keefe, Butte, and Drake area. And I did have a haying business for about 8-10 years. I used to clip CRP. But like I said, getting back to the bottom line is diversify, and of course, price. I mean, everybody knows, back then when I was scratching, we didn't have a price for our commodity. It was very, very low. I know when I sold my first wheat, it was $4.25, $4.25. That was back in 1995, 96. And now look, what's the price today? About the same, right? Yeah, okay. So here we are. And cattle are a little bit higher than what they used to be. I believe the last time I saw the market was $1.48 per pound, I believe, for 5 weight. So, that's a lot better than what I used to get. But prices have gone up. The overhead's gone up. I guess the, bank payments, I've been there. I've used to have to borrow operating, which is kind of that's you're behind the 8 ball when you come out of the starting gate when you have to borrow operating. So I've been there, done that. I've never filed bankruptcy or nothing like that. Never even considered it. I've always made my payments but just I remember one year where I was farming myself. This was when my husband and my ex-husband were separated. After I sold the calves, I had $300 left. $300 to make it through the winter. But, however, I had hay. I had a lot of surplus hay that I was selling. And that I was able to sell a little bit here and there in order just to keep going. But I know what that's like. After you make your bank payment and you have nothing left, and you're wondering, how am I going to make it through the winter? And yeah. So anyway, I guess main thing is to get out there and get your hands dirty. I'm sure, you all know that I've done the cattle thing, pulled calves, you name it, by myself. And so, like I said, just keep at it. It will get better. And my husband and I, we are close to retirement. My husband, Gary, he loves farming, but he doesn't want to. He said, well, the machinery's getting old. Maybe it's time, to kind of back off and, lease the land out. And he says, well, one more year. Well, okay, well, then don't whine to me when the combine breaks down again right in the middle of harvest. And you have to put about $2,000 into it, to get it to finish up. So anyway, but just keep at it and it'll get better. And then, like I said, diversify, whatever your talents lie in. Chickens, we used to have chickens. I had 300 chickens in Keefe, very rural town. So yeah, I've done the butchering and all that, and it's fun. It's a lot of work, but you gotta get some help going, and you knock them out. But diversify, whatever. Like now we have the internet. Back then I didn't. Nothing. I had nothing, in like what we're enjoying now. So person can maybe do some online sales, like a gig worker per se, or, just whatever. There's so many opportunities out there. Yep. So yeah, just keep at it. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you, Dr. Shelley, for letting me speak.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine. And we all need to hear that, so thank you for that. So we had a question. Trisha, you had your hand up. Did you have a question or a comment, Trisha?
Well, one thing I was just curious on, one of the things that I think has been a challenge over the past couple of years for anybody that's trying to do direct sales is the farm or the Food Freedom Act in North Dakota. And I was just curious what your thought, I don't know. I mean, when that first started out, Luke Simons was the one that was leading that bill. And at the beginning of that, there was raw milk included in it. And I mean, it was basically an old book for being able to sell your products off the farm. And then it kind of dwindled from, big talk down to, we're cutting the milk out, then we're cutting this out, and then we're down to, these policies and these regulations. And I was just curious as to what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so my thoughts, and then maybe Sarah or maybe Dr. Jesse might have something to say also, is it's a complex issue as a veterinarian with some of the health concerns of raw milk and food security, but also food safety. It's a balancing act. That's where, well, for the Meat Act, you know, the investment of a regional mid-size meat packing facility is going to help, because then it will be at USDA standards and you can sell it across lines. But I do think there needs to be a concerted effort from multiple agencies that how can we ensure safe food, but locally produced food that we can buy. And I don't know if Sarah with her legal mind or Dr. Jesse with her veterinary and her farming, she lives two lives, might have something to speak about that too. But it's something that needs to be addressed. And I do think that COVID made that so obvious about why we need to really make a concerted effort. It will be multi-agencies. And so Jesse or Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
I defer to Jesse.
Okay. Jesse, we can't see you.
I'm good. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that as we have, you know, for ourselves as ranchers of trying to do the direct to market, direct to consumer market, there is that reality that as a veterinarian, you're still responsible. And raw milk, you know, that's a more contentious subject. It is a little bit frustrating to see some producers following the rules and then others, you know, selling products that are not USDA inspected. I know Tricia mentioned, you know, there's quite a lot of work, I imagine, in getting that where you had your retail license. And so, you know, making that a possibility, but still having guidelines. So we're not putting out product that's not going to be wholesome or safe for our consumers is also, I think, really important. And as a veterinarian, that's our goal too. So I don't have a lot to add legally, but that's just my, you know, kind of agree with you in that thought process, that it's not always a simple answer. Right.
But it's a good point, and it's an important point, and I think it's going to be front and center in this year that's coming. Does anybody want to add any thoughts on the Food Freedom Act from your perspective? Okay. Well, stay tuned to this space. So Tracy Wilkie had a question or a thought.
I had a thank yous to give to each of you for your time and your information and your dedication to farming. My grandfathers were farmers, and I'm a candidate for District 16 House of Representatives, and I will do anything I can to support you and your endeavors to keep the family farms in North Dakota going. Sarah, it was nice to see you again. It's been a while. And have a good evening, ladies. Miigwech, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. We have a question for Megan Vig, who is the wife of my Lieutenant Governor, Ben Vig, but also I do believe you keep the books for your family farm. Is that correct?
Yes, I try.
Okay, so how does that, a lot of people, as you know, most people are not farmers and they don't understand the dynamic between the husband-wife team. And can you kind of maybe explain a little bit what it's like to keep the books, and then also while Ben is doing some of the physical work and you are working off the farm, and how you manage that and how you plan, how you together or how you make that work?
So, I mean, every year we keep innovating and changing our methods. It's teamwork. I mean, I'm not receiving the bills and writing out the checks, but at the end of the year, I just get everything organized so we can bring it to the accountant. And I'm a continual learner. I never took too many accounting class. I never took any accounting classes, and that's one thing I want to do. in the future is to be better. I think I have a good handle on things. At least the accountant tells me that everything's in nice order when I bring things to him. But it's constant change every year. Try to get a little bit better. Try to figure out what, looking at what does it cost to raise a bushel of wheat? What does it cost to raise a bushel of barley? Looking at the sailing ground, identifying acres that, hey, we've tried soybeans here. Unless it's over $11 an acre or $11 a bushel, is it cost effective? So taking in that soil productivity index and the cost of production, there's a lot of factors in trying to identify, like, where you're going to pinch the most pennies out of every piece of ground, but also making sure that we're being good to the earth and that we can have Mara be the next generation of farmers. So
I love that.
so every year getting a little bit better. But I'm not out in the tractor. I wouldn't mind being out in the tractor, but I have to commute to work quite a ways, and there's just not that amount of time to help out in the fields as I would like. And I'm also I'm raising our family, so
All right.
have to make sure she's being watched and fed.
Yeah.
And I also I love gardening, so I spend a lot of time out in the garden and canning. So this is the busy canning season. Wherever I can make my own products, I try. So I even made ketchup over the weekend. Those are the things I enjoy about rural life, is that I have that space to get to grow my own food. And my parents help us keep the freezer full of meat, of beef. So it's a nice way of life.
All right. Well, thank you for that insight, Megan. I have another question here, maybe for Christy, if you can speak to it. Could you talk a little bit about how livestock concentration has impacted your ranch?
It's probably even better for Trisha to help with that, but
So we could do a tag team.
yeah, I can't speak from the very technical. I'm not the one in our farm that, helps decide exactly just how much acres does this cow and calf need for the summer months. What I can tell you is that, like our farm, for example, a fair amount of the land we own that was always in my husband's family is land that you would not want to take out of pasture. It's not meant for anything else. It's too hilly, too rocky, all that. And my husband is a very conservative farmer, which is good. He doesn't want to put his cattle out too early, doesn't want to run out of grass. We have sandier soil, drought conditions, all those kinds of things. But we are learning more and more about utilizing cattle to get that native prairie grass growing better, the native grasses that were here. And apparently the more cattle you can kind of intensively graze in an area, we're not the ones out there moving an electric fence every 3 days. We have a farm cattle or a grain farm too. We just don't have quite time for that. And we have enough land right now. And it's easy to say we want to expand more cattle, but it also costs a lot of money to buy cattle. So it's a little bit of a slow process too. So for us on our ranch, it's doing two things. Yes, it is helping our bottom line by having more cows. We calve out more calves. So we make more income, hopefully, but it's also a way for us to improve our native prairie and our grass. Because when you can put cattle, you're seeing more and more of that. We saw more and more CRP come out of, there's just not the money for that in the government, but some of that land, people, even farmers want to put it into production. It just doesn't make any money. So the more you can utilize cattle in the way their hooves go into the ground and they eat the grass, you make them eat the weeds and grass they don't love as much, then that next year your native prairie comes up better. So it's a twofold process. It's a way to for us to run more animals on our land, but we also are looking at the science that is showing that by doing that, you actually are improving the quality of your land, the grass, that kind of thing. I mean, our cows are out there from May through hopefully November. So it is a lot of time. So that's what it's looking at doing for us, is those two things.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Tricia, do you have something to add to that?
Sure, I'm one of the crazy ones that actually goes out and runs the electric fence. So we started out, and just on our operation, we had, let's see, I think I figured 10 pastures here when we started. When Dr. Shelley was out for a Pheasants Forever tour that we had at our place, we were just finishing up a big fencing project, running single wire electric fences. And so between those permanent single wire electric fences and our poly wire that we've run, moving cattle, either at the beginning of the season, we were moving every day. Now we're slowed down because the growth of the grass is slower. We probably will go over about 75 pastures by the time we're done.
Wow.
So it's amazing. The one thing that I will say that we've let happen over time with our grasslands is you have to have a pasture that's the size, like Christy was saying, the cattle can't pick and choose, and they can't go back and they can't take a second bite. When they take that second bite, that's when you lose the health and the nutrition of that plant. You lose root mass, you lose soil health because of that. So the biggest thing that we try to do is move those cattle at a rate. When the grass is growing fast, we move fast. When the grass is growing slower, like we're in, I would say, drought. I mean, every year in North Dakota, I don't care what anybody says, there's drought every summer. It may only be a week long, it may be all summer long, but we go through spurts of drought, and we're in one of those right now. And so we've slowed our cows down. They probably won't come back to those pastures a second time. Some of the pastures we grazed early and quick, we're hoping to go back to those. And what I've seen happen over time is we've lost diversity in our native grasslands. And that has been because of grazing those pastures for too long. It's because the pastures are too big with not enough stock density on them. We're cool season dominant, which those are the grasses that, in my opinion, over time are not the ones that put pounds on your calves. It's the warm season grasses that have the punch. And those are the grasses that we need to get back on our grasslands. And the only way to do that is by changing the timing of the year that you're grazing those pastures, and by giving them rest and recovery. You know, everybody goes through windows of time where maybe you hit one pasture just a little bit too long and you're like, oop, I shouldn't have done that. But I will say this, as long as you give that the rest and the time it needs to come back and to recover, things will turn around and it'll come back probably better than it was before. So the biggest thing we've seen is, and the reason why we're doing what we're doing is because we're trying to be more regenerative. We're trying to build soil health. We're trying, I think I told Dr. Shelley this story when she was out here, but when I was in 4-H, I collected grass samples and mounted them for 4-H projects. And I remember as a kid, you know, it didn't take very long to come up with probably 75 to 100 species. Those species are not here anymore. And that is because of our grazing practices. And the other thing I noticed is, I'm sure everybody is familiar with the yucca plant. Yucca are native, and we've had cattle go into a pasture, and this was probably about 5 years ago that it just kind of hit me that we had cows go into a pasture. The yucca bloom every other year, and they were just kind of in the white blooming stage. Our cows got into that pasture and they slicked every single bloom off of those plants. And the reason why they did that is because that plant has a taproot that is 8, 10, 15 feet deep. I don't know. I've never dug one because I've never been able to get to the bottom of one. You'd probably need a backhoe. But that plant is pulling up nutrients from the soil that our grassland plants do not have anymore. And so my goal over time is that we don't have a mineral bill. I want our plants to provide the minerals that our cattle need on a daily basis without having to supplement them mineral. So there's my 2 cents. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Okay.
I can talk grassland forever. So
yeah, no, you can learn a lot from all you guys, and I love that you're bringing up, you know, again, whoever's watching this on Facebook, cows have gotten a a bad rap with the environment, but they are the solution to the environment and the food security. Absolutely, 100%. Ruminants, I should say. But I have a special place for cows. Christy, I had a note that you had something to add to that.
I just wanted a quick a quick question about your thoughts on in America with what we've seen with the packers over this last year. And of course, it was emphasized during COVID, how we have such few packers and if they're price fixing and all that kind of thing, or what your thoughts are on that.
Oh, it's my favorite topic. So it's, again, one of the reasons I am running is that we need to keep that independence and food security and diversification in our state, in our food producing state. And so this is when I really want to raise our NPL roots, our nonpartisan league roots, when North Dakota government used to invest in North Dakota and North Dakotans to defend us from outside forces like that, like big government, big banks, big businesses, big railroads. Don't get me started. Don't get Sarah started. And so a mid-sized regional packing facility, which is about 250 head a day for cattle, is about $50 million. And for hogs, like 100 head a day for hogs is about 20 million. And that's the government investment, but we are independent and we are capitalist, and it's run by a co-op, which is the best form of business of our rural state. And that gives us an option. It doesn't take anything away from going to the big packers, but if we want to label our meat, develop our own brand, I mean, we have the best beef there is, and you guys know that. And so that it is, I mean, we have a problem on a national level about food of origin labeling, but can you imagine having a state of origin labeling or a ranch of labeling? And that's it's a way to develop that niche market. And as we're developing it as a strategy, as you know, 30% of your, I'm sorry if I'm going on too long here, but 30% of your niche market is that prime cut, and you need those institutions for that other 70%, institutional contracts. So what is like number one for all North Dakotan families? Food security for your children. So what about our schools? Could some of that be an institutional contract of that, that 70%, or other food security problems that we have in our state? Hospitals, schools, and I'm always wanting to buy lots of meat. So that is the way to keep independent. And look, we have less than 800,000 people in North Dakota, and even less of those. How many ranchers do we have? 12,000, 5,000? We don't have a political stance. The only way we're going to have a political influence on our future is that if we get the North Dakota government involved in investing in us like we did in my great-grandpa's day. So I feel super strong about that. And I mean, I happen to be a veterinarian and eat a lot of meat, but on the crop side, when Ben and I talk, he talks about a fertilizer plant, right? Our own fertilizer plant. Again, the investment comes from the government, the North Dakota government. But it's run, we don't like a lot of government, as you guys know, but it's run by the co-op. You guys know your business best and what you want for your business. And so that's lifting up our NPL roots. And North Dakota is unique in the union to be able to do that. Why? Because we have the North Dakota State Bank, thank you NPL, and we have the Legacy Fund. What better legacy than healthy soils and continued generations of independent farmers is there? And so I feel very strongly about that. And that's where I think if we can get this across the line in North Dakota, we are not only ensuring our state, will be an example to other states to do that same thing. And I've talked to pig farmers and ranchers all across the nation. They're trying to develop like their own brand of pig with certain fat or whatever. They would come here because they would invest in a family farm here because they can develop their own brand of pig, for example. So that would be unique. So it would bring families in, protect our generation right now, food security, and it's our culture and our history. and we should capitalize on that.
And can I add, it's value added. So it's not just the cattle, it's the corn, it's the
Yep.
soybeans, the small grains if you need to. I know that's not preferred, but a place to send those grains to and to sell to the neighboring farmers.
100%. It's synergistic. That's all it's synergistic, and it marries the East and the West, the crop and the animals, the meat sciences in higher ed, the research, the bringing progressive people back here, the young generation. We would be the most progressive state, agricultural state in the union, if not the world. So.
I have a quick question. Would there be a state-owned feedlot to support the packing plant, or would the rancher sell their calves directly, or haul directly to the plant? Would we have to background our calves?
No. So I'll back out a little bit, and we don't really call things state-owned anymore. We call it a public-private partnership. And so really the North Dakota government is just that initial investment, and then it's run by the co-op model. So that would be up to the business that wants to run it, the co-op, the members of the co-op that wants to run it. As far as, but that's where you can imagine new businesses starting up, right? Like if you're, you know, so it would be, you know, there's a lot of freedom in that. The initial investment is just from the government. The rest is run, because that needs to change. That's a dynamic process, and you don't want a lot of red tape there.
Okay, it'd be a good outlet for the grains, corn, and of course the wheat, oats, barley, you know, for the feedlot, and of course the byproduct of manure, you know, excellent fertilizer. So, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yep, it's 100%. So I could go on and on about this, you guys. So, and hopefully I'll have a good 4 years to keep lifting your voices and bringing these into a reality. But it's only through your efforts and dedication. I do want to thank Megan Big, Jessica Hake, Sarah Vogel for their work to make tonight happen. You invited your friends and family, and not your family, but you know. Thank you, and thank you for all you guys do. You can always contact us with more questions, or if you want to reach each other with ideas to network. This is what it's about, very similar to what I've been doing with different people throughout the state. There are women just like you, and some that are just wanting to come in, but they just don't even know how. And you guys all have something to share with them. And so let's continue this network. And with that, I'm going to thank you. And, you know, we'll win. Ciao.